Good evening and welcome to the 2022 presidential debates. I am your host and moderator for today's event, Natalie Coles. Tonight we will be witnessing how our three presidential candidates are worthy of the position of being president of the Republic of Landova. You can catch up and watch our live TV broadcast on Orca News channel and Landovadev's YouTube channel. For tonight's debate, we are currently live here at Schottler Municipal Hall to conduct our live debate. With us today in the venue are our panel moderators. We have here is Sonoma City Mayor Stalin S. Slimson. We also have Orca News reporter and political correspondent Paul Wanders. And last but not the least, former Vice President Thompson I. Samant. Welcome to our presidential debates, panel moderators. And thank you for joining us to be the moderators. Now, in our venue, of course, is our presidential candidates for this upcoming 2022 elections. He was the former mayor of Flat Hills Village since 2016, and now the incumbent vice president of Landova. We have here from the Landovian Axe Party, Vice President Pete R. Jenner. Next, we have the incumbent congressman in the House of Representatives, representing the 2nd Congressional District of Schottler. We have here from the Fusion Party, Representative Lutsky Klavinsky. And last but not the least, incumbent mayor of the municipality of Schottler and Picot City. Here we have from the Red Conservative Party, Mayor Justin S. Limson. All of these candidates will be facing off in tonight's debate. Follow up on our protocols in our live event. The audience and staff here in the venue have gotten their negative RT-PCR COVID-19 test before the scheduled event. We are obliged to follow certain health and safety measures that are still due to the ongoing pandemic. But for now, we are preparing now for the debate proper. We will be right back after the break. And we are back. Our candidates are now ready to face off for tonight's presidential debate. First and foremost, our debate rules must be followed. Each candidate assigned an agreement regarding the rules and discipline for tonight's debate. The said rules are as follows. Each candidate must treat and respect others' statements and opinions. Each candidate must be accountable for his words and actions during the debate. Each candidate must not say profane or do signs of cussing and harm to others. Each candidate must respect and obey their time in answering the moderator's question. Each candidate must value humility and sincerity to each other with a profound act of discipline. Failure to follow these rules will result in the whole debate will be halted. Probable sanctions will be imposed on the said candidate, as well as his or her party. Those are the rules for tonight's debate. Now up to our debate proper. Our debate is divided into 4 sections. Section 1 is entitled The Big Issue, in which all 3 candidates will answer a specific big issue that the moderators will say. Section 2 is then entitled Yay or Nay. This is the same as last year's debate where candidates will state if they agree or disagree with a particular topic. No further statement will be acknowledged in this section of the debate. Section 3 is entitled, The Argument. This is also the same as last year, where a particular question or issue will be raised by the moderators, where each candidate will assert and argue each other's point of view. A moderator will hold the question to a specific candidate only. The other candidates may or may not give their stance. And the last section would be the closing statement of the candidates. They are free to state whatever they would say in a limited amount of time. Let's begin tonight's 2022 presidential debate. Section 1 is named The Big Issue. Candidates, one of our panel moderators will ask you an issue or a question in which you all will take turns in answering the question. You may only respond one time per question or issue in under 1 minute and 30 seconds. The panel moderator will call you for your time to respond. Alright, our first big issue will be from Sonoma City Mayor Stalin Limson. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Alright, for our first big issue. We know that in my city we have seen the progress of what seems to be the big project in our country. The municipality of Tudor is under your hands as the next president. Certain issues arose from the pending approval and construction of the project plans. This is foremost especially the proposed Tudor nuclear power plant. The Third Congress has voted in the referendum for the approval of the said proposed nuclear power plant. It is now up to the next Congress and the citizens of Tudor for them to decide if they would agree on the said project. Aside from that, we haven't done planning for the industrial park of the municipality. The big issue is in your own perspective and opinion, should the nuclear power plant be approved for construction? Should we build the proposed nuclear power plant where some pros and cons would give way to the project? And how will you plan out the rest of the industrial park project, all in all for the municipality of Tudor?
Alright, Vice President Jenner will be the first to respond on that issue. You can go ahead, Mr. Vice President.
It has been a big issue since the establishment of this proposed nuclear power plant. I never agreed upon the proposal of this nuclear power plant, nor the whole industrial park project. As a result of this project, it has been the greatest turmoil our country has been if we would approve it or not. I would rather dissolve the said project and then continue the rest of the industrial park area in the port. Our issue hasn't been resolved up to this day. But our people are now their hands if they would rather construct the power plant or not. It's up to them now.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Representative Klavinsky, you can now state your response.
The referendum of the proposed nuclear power plant has been our only option to end our proposal dispute. I put into the hands of the people of Tudor as well as the incoming Congress about the verdict on the proposed nuclear power plant. If the proposal has been approved, I can give it a go and put into action the Tudor nuclear power plant project. If not, we would dismiss the proposal and not discuss about it again. Then the industrial park project can now be continued. Almost a lot of income would be given to our citizens in Tudor about the start of the industrial park project. But we have problems that could arise again when that begins. Rest assured, my presidency can give recognition to our people's say and agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Klavinsky. Mr. Mayor Limson, you can now respond.
Would rather accept the challenges of the proposed nuclear power plant. The say of the people, the vote of the people are now up to them. Likewise, I would like to continue this project. I would agree to this project, rather than keeping up with the difficulties that we would yet face. The industrial park is easy to take, but the planning yet again would be a problem. Our president signed into law the Renewed Infrastructure Project Act for the year 2022. The project can be easily managed and put into action but is difficult to plan and conceptualize. It can be again difficult, but our contractors internationally, if we can contact and be involved with them, are said plans. This would make sure our establishment of the municipality of Tudor would be worthy and a success.
Thank you, Mayor Limson. Our next big issue will be from Orca News reporter and political correspondent Paul Wanders.
Thank you, Natalie. Landova focuses more on the past administration about the growth of infrastructure projects in the country. Overall, certain progress has been made within the country, such as the Commerce Valley Terraces Village Infrastructure Project, the renovation of LHR1, the establishment of Prodicano and Vernazola districts, and the Roadworks Act project. The past administration has made certain acts to better enact and better expect further developments in the country. The problem with the said projects would be the delay has been issued by certain contractors of the said urban development agencies. Another would be the poor planning of the project that would contribute to the delays of some infrastructure projects. For you candidates, what would be your course of action for these delays in the infrastructure projects? And how would we expect the urban development of these countries based on your plans and platforms?
All right, thank you, Paul, for the question. Representative Klavinsky, you may go first.
The infrastructure in our country has heavily relied upon local contractors in our area. Construction companies, even our urban planning and development department, didn't want to make delays in the projects. The problem was the limited workers we've seen in establishing these construction projects. Load works were not even done at a fast pace. My course of action is to add international infrastructural agencies to maintain and cooperate with our infrastructural projects. This would ensure our progress throughout the whole country.
Thank you, Mr. Klavinsky. Mayor Justin Limson, you may now respond.
The infrastructure projects were done in order for President Jerwin to conduct assessments if they would be fitting in our urban planning. Even if our main purpose is to build buildings and roads to our cities, we can't very assure the limitations and time the projects would handle, thus delaying these constructions. I would better say that the Architecture and Infrastructure Department could better initiate these proposed projects, even in the planning phase. Better planning could be the key to our successful nation. I initiated the local contractors when the Shedlar completion project has done to recruit workers, preferably internationally, for better conducts and assessments of these projects. I may need to have companies that could sponsor our infrastructural projects.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Limson. And Mr. Vice President Jenner, you may now respond.
I totally understand that the purpose of these infrastructure projects is to better grow our urban and industrial sectors. But I rest assured our promise is to be able to build something rather than allegedly delaying purposely these projects. I could better yet give the Urban Planning and Development Department the freedom to initiate all the proposed projects without the authorization of the Congress. These would mostly be done by the Secretaries for Urban Planning and Development in the Architecture and Infrastructure. Nevertheless, to say, it would be an issue to minimize the workforce in the construction sector.
Thank you, Vice President Jenner and all the candidates. Next, we have our big issue that we will be asked by former Vice President Thompson Samant. Mr. Samant, you may now ask about your big issue.
Thank you, Natalie. My candidates, our third and incumbent Congress, have made huge changes to our electoral system in this election. Some constitutional amendments have been approved by our Congress. One proposition has been introduced in Congress that political parties may or may not represent their candidates in the elections. They suggested that there would be a political revamp to unacknowledge candidates and create unified coalitions in the government. But the Constitution defines that one of the three major political parties must hold leadership, whether by majority or minority. The proposition of these amendments is pending for approval and most probably wouldn't be accepted ahead by the elections. Our big issue is that, do you agree that political coalitions and parties revamp would greatly change our political and electoral system in this country? How would this proposition affect our way of governance if this would be enacted into our Constitution?
All right, thank you, Mr. Samant, for the big issue we'll be tackling. Mayor Justin Limson, you may go first.
The main reason for these coalitions and the political revamp is to destroy our country and put it into divisions. The three major parties have done great with equity. Moreover, I haven't seen any issues with the three parties, so what is the point of establishing these political revamp? Our way of governance is being relied upon by our Constitution and our ideologies. Our diverse point of view could make that a difference, though. If I would be president, I would not approve of the political revamp of the political parties.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Justin Limson. Vice President Jenner, you may now respond.
I would like to counter-argue to Mr. Justin Limson about the political revamp of the parties. The reason Congress wants to propose this proposition is for a way for the government to handle certainties in the whole executive and legislative branches. It is a way to better enact laws and regulations. It is a way to better ratify these laws which various parties disapprove these bills the Congress proposed. The way of governance is being contested through the parties, not for its methods but their indifferences.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And Representative Klavinsky, you may now respond.
The political revamp of the parties could be a better way to put into perspective that our parties are struggling too much to hold a constant majority or a minority, whether in the Senate or the lower house. Coalitions were used to seek goals primarily to achieve one's main agenda. It would be better enacted for us congressmen to put into law our proposed bills and laws. It does also somewhat indirectly voted in by our people to propose certain bills such as the nuclear power plant by a referendum. Thus, it could be a notion to get our governance promptly be accepted by the political revamp.
Thank you again to all the candidates. Section 1 of our debate is finally over. Our next section of our debate will continue after the break. Don't go anywhere. Now we're back from the break. Our next section of the debate is called Yay or Nay. This is where candidates would agree or disagree with a certain question. They are not allowed to make any further responses to the question. I will be reading all the questions and you can write if you agree or not. Alright, let's get started. Do you agree to mandate COVID-19 vaccination to all citizens of Landova when it is applicable? Do you wish to open up the country and lift travel restrictions when you will take office? Do you agree to reimpose COVID-19 alert levels when cases increase incrementally? Do you agree that the new constitutional amendment for these elections is better than the last one? Do you agree that our infrastructure projects are taking too long to accomplish? Do you agree that Landova should establish an airport as soon as possible in your term? Do you agree that the Picot City massive infrastructure project shall be done right after your term? Do you agree to establish new foreign policy and relations with neighboring nations? Do you agree with establishing immigrant citizenships to Landova? Do you agree that we should improve our military expenses and capita? And do you agree that our country has improved and developed from the previous years? Thank you once again, candidates, for your response to our arguable statements. We would be having a break for a while. Our next section of the debate is coming up. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to our 2022 presidential debate. With me still are candidates and panel moderators for our debate. We can now go ahead to the third section of our debate, which is named the argument. Each candidate will be given a chance to stand out and give their statement about a certain topic. The remaining candidates can refute or counter-argue with the other candidate's response. Each candidate will only be given 1 minute per topic and extended 1 minute if they would like to counteract or give their own stance about the topic. Other candidates may or may not give their stance or opinion. Moderators will be reading the certain topic. First to respond can go ahead. Candidates must be respectful to each other's point of view of their stance. So now let's begin the argument. The first topic will be given by Orca News reporter Paul Wanders. Paul, you may now begin.
Thanks, Natalie. The first topic is about the COVID-19 pandemic handling of Landova. According to the latest case report, we haven't recorded any new cases in the last 4 months. And our vaccination has begun slowly but surely progress through the days. Travel restrictions are beginning to tighten again, as well as cases around the world grew into a spike due to the Omicron variants and other variants out there. As you're running for president, in general, what are your plans in handling the COVID-19 situation in our country?
We may go ahead with Vice President Jenner for his stance.
I would take risks and further assess the importance of the health protocols we have been imposing. The pandemic isn't even over yet in our neighboring nations. We have deflected this virus and not made significant infections in the past months. I want to continue that rate and still achieve our COVID-19 free status. Vaccination has been done slowly, but we can help those who have doubts about this vaccine. We might impose mandatory vaccination in some way for eligible groups. Travel restrictions and regulations would be a problem. We might have the need to reimpose stricter travel restrictions for countries with the surge of the virus. And in some way repay back our economy is slowly but surely opening up our country. We might not know when, in fact.
Representative Klavinsky wants to counter-argue. You may respond, Mr. Klavinsky.
Mandatory vaccination would be like forfeiting one's freedom. I like to think the fact that mandatory inoculation is impractical for these kinds of coercive methods. Though precisely, it should be a recommendation for all eligible citizens to be inoculated against the coronavirus. Better at all minimize the risks of infection and minimize the chances of having severe symptoms or death. I would like to continue President Limson's way of handling the COVID-19 pandemic in this country. It has been a success and we would like to continue that.
Vice President Jenner wants to counter-argue. Go ahead, Mr. Vice President.
Vaccination's main purpose is to limit the spread and limit hospitalization rates. It could be better if we manage and monitor the infection rate of each city and municipality if there has been a growth of cases. All in all, it would still be a good idea to implement the mandatory vaccination, besides the fact that delimitation occurs for certain individuals who have doubts and uncertainties towards the vaccines. If we would implement this, there would be a chain effect for other solutions to the problems. 1 is the main focus of the pandemic, is the spread. 2 is the ease of travel restrictions, and 3 would be the freedom we can achieve.
Thank you again, Mr. Jenner. Mr. Mayor Limson wants to counter-argue. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I would like to mention that our only vaccination site is only in Lingus General Hospital. We might better yet initiate and take hold of Plainsfield Medical Hospital to turn into a vaccination site. The problem is the storage facility of the vials. I want to also disagree with the mandatory vaccination, as Representative Klavinsky had said. There is still no possibility that the vaccines could maintain efficacy wherein individuals are being somewhat immune enough that their response to the changing virus would be altered. It's like saying that, if you're still unvaccinated, the tendency is to limit yourself from going outside. If you are vaccinated, you would say that you're free, and not limit yourself from the virus, thus making a probable infection to wide areas. We could fact-check this thing out.
Thank you, candidates. Our next topic will be given by Sonoma City Mayor Stalin Limson. Mr. Mayor, for your topic, please.
Thank you, Natalie. Here in my jurisdiction, Sonoma City has been dealing with tourists and probably locals who have been complaining about our transportation system. The bus system around Landova was heavily constrained with backlashes, especially our roads. Drivers reported that traffic would be a big issue if buses roam around freely in the outer cities. The Plainsfields and Nomo Bridge is a major barrier to our problem. One is that the roads are too narrow for the passageway of vehicles. 2 is that there are only 2-lane roads in both ways. 3 will be the build-up of traffic when entering and exiting Sonoma City. President Jerwin Limson, my brother, wanted to propose an intercity metro transit system between Sonoma City and the whole province of Antirradian. The municipality of Tudor once proposed this idea, but it wouldn't be possible at this time and effort due to the port railways that has been established last year. For you, what will be the possible solution to our people in easing transportation methods around the city and even to the whole country?
Thank you, Mayor Stalin Limson, for your topic. Mayor Justin Limson wants to go first. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
The issues with our transportation system are that we have a limited amount of roads that vehicles can maneuver. If we would strengthen and fasten enough our infrastructure projects, this would be so much easier to handle. Due to problems that arose of the projects, we would have to establish 3-lane roads opposing sides of the Plainsfield-Sonoma Bridge. We can't build another bridge into the city due to environmental costs and risks. We can build ferries again to Prodicano if that would be possible for tourists. Sea travel would be a lot more easier and convenient. We cannot be sure about this project yet in the meantime, but that would be one of the possible solutions to our transportation system.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Limson. Representative Klavinsky wants to counter-argue. Go ahead, Mr. Klavinsky.
The effective cost of our infrastructure projects is limited to the loan budget of our government. Precisely. Various methods have been already demonstrated, such as in Plainsfield City, which is creating a one-way road scheme, but locals don't mind implementing that. Likewise, we can make bridges in the future if we can build the rest of Tudor and establish what President Limson proposed district in Picot City, which is the Sprosk Bayside, that could easily help our response to the transportation system. That is, in fact, would not be shortly soon. We can determine our course of action based on the needs of the people to better yet plan our impending solutions. The ferry system would be a great alternative solution to this problem, and I agree with Mayor Justin about this.
Thank you, Mr. Klavinsky. Mayor Limson wants to counter-argue. Go ahead, Mr. Limson.
But can we have the manpower to be elected again in office, if that would be the solution? We do have our ways, but we cannot guarantee our ways successfully. Making temporary solutions could lead to better and progressive solutions. Likewise, designing the bridge and ferry system would better initiate our path to a better transportation system in Landova.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Justin. Vice President Jenner, do you have a stand-in on this topic? No? All right then, thank you again, candidates. This was our third section of the debate. We will be having a break for a while. Our last section of the debate will be in a few moments. Don't go anywhere. Welcome again to our 2022 presidential debate. Here we are now in our last section of the debate, which is the closing statement of our candidates. Candidates, you only have 1 minute to freely give your speech, your closing statement for tonight's debate. We will go first with Vice President Jenner. You can now say your closing statement.
I would like to say that we should continue our works in this country to live out the impeccable standards of our society. Through the livelihood and vision of our country, may we progress better. I could rely more upon through your support to build this developing nation. Thank you.
Mr. Klavinsky, you may now say your closing statement.
Our people of this great nation, we have come to decide the fate of this country. As one of your running candidates for president, I would like to honor each one of you with my respect for this nation. As far as I have conquered in being a representative in the lower house, dedicating my time to the goodness of this nation, I have my sincere trust in you as a nation in rebuilding and prospering the future of this nation. Thank you.
Lastly, Mr. Justin Limson, your closing statement for tonight's debate.
My dear citizens, it has been a great day to have this debate with us. I wanted to thank all of you for recognizing our candidates with me and Mr. Klavinsky and Vice President Genner. It should be worthwhile that we can know more about ourselves to see and envision our country would be. Our dear people, it is up to you now to decide. I truly appreciate your decisions about whoever would be the next president of this nation. I likewise have to see the beauty of our progressing prosperity, unity, and justice. As our ancestors did, we can make it too. By our words and actions, keeping this country great as always. Thank you.
Thank you once again, candidates, for the incredible debate we have tonight. That is for us in tonight's debate. Before we go, we want to congratulate President Jerwin Limson's 38th birthday today. Happy birthday to you, President Limson. We may see that we have helped you decide on who's worthy and truthful to become the next president of Landova. We will see you again on our election night on February 12th. This is your host, Natalie Coles. Thank you for watching and good evening, everyone.